Wow, such a crowd.
Damn, a lot of people.
So,
Hello,
Cristina and
Summit.
Vasco, let's have a real talk about artificial intelligence. No chatbots allowed here in this conversation, okay? Did you know that a recent study by Eurostat ranks Portugal in second in adoption of artificial intelligence technology? Isn't that amazing? What do you think? Cristina, for instance, what are your thoughts about it?
So, first of all, hello, everyone. Great pleasure to be here. I learned that in the backstage. I should not be surprised, but I am. Although, it's quite easy to justify. Portugal is a very entrepreneurial ecosystem. If we think about the biggest success cases in terms of startups, most of them are AI native companies, and this is before AI was cool. So when we think about Unbabel, Feedzai, Sword Health, these companies were founded in maybe 2015, 10 years ago, and they're already AI first. Portugal is very strong on the B2B, and I think most of the startups that succeeded have been leveraging data and AI to really impact customers and build products that drive real value. I think also when we think about what's needed for companies to adopt AI, we need a mix of innovators, and the startups are a very good example of that. We need talent, and we need corporates and the corporate sector to adopt these technologies. And in Portugal, these intervenients of the ecosystem really work well together. And they take risks, and they are entrepreneurial. So, for example, me and Vasco, we are on the board of a consortium that we call a Responsible AI Consortium that gathers research institutes, startups, and corporates to solve big problems with AI, design the right framework, and make sure AI is adopted responsibly. So I think this is a very good example of the fact that we are ahead in terms of AI adoption.
And it's great for us.
If I could add, I think it's also part of our DNA, right? I mean, Portugal was the first country to have 100% mobile adoption, in Europe.
Yeah.
And we've always been early adopters of things. I think people get excited about new, and we don't strange it very much. I feel like the rise from what's ChatGPT to oh yeah, that's cool, I'm going to try it, felt incredibly fast in Portugal, right? And I think we have that openness towards technology that is potentially well represented in Web Summit.
Yes, Vasco, you founded Unbabel 10 years ago.
Yep.
You did predict this boom, didn't you?
Yeah.
You knew this was the way.
Yeah. When we started Unbabel was exactly because we were seeing that we were early stages of AI, but AI was about to create massive disruptions in a number of industries, including the translation industry, which is where we are.
OK. And the pandemic was a jackpot to the tech companies. Did you feel that?
I think there were COVID winners, COVID losers. I think for Unbabel, we're COVID in-betweeners. Definitely can name some examples that benefited from the massive change and acceleration of digital transformation that the pandemic created as opportunities. Other companies didn't quite make it so well, but overall, I think the technology companies got a shot at suddenly becoming more relevant in a lot of use cases. And I think we're seeing a lot of the benefits right now.
OK, Cristina, I used the word boom. Maybe it is a boom in a bubble. How do you bring the community to this when we have that big shadow that AI will take over our jobs?
The AI taking over our jobs is always a very good question to ask. Look, I think as we've seen in previous revolutions, AI will automate a lot of the work that we do today, and we should accept that. I think there's industries where that's a little bit more obvious, and I believe the challenging part is if you've had a career for 30 years, it's very hard to accept that a new technology will do a better job than you do.
Okay.
But there's other industries, and I think call centers and customer service are just a very good example where no one makes a career in being a customer service agent. And if the
in
work
Portugal.
Is in Portugal.
If you're in the Philippines, you do.
Probably, you're right. But I think there's just work that's too manual and can absolutely be done by a machine way better than a human. And humans can level up, do a different thing, So I believe the transition will be difficult, but as new people enter the job market, in the next couple of years, we will all learn to do our jobs with an assistant or multiple assistants by our side that will help us be better at what we do, be way more productive. So I think the transition will be tough, but in the end, in a couple of years, no one will talk about AI as this thing. It's just going to be embedded everywhere.
So one expression that I heard recently that I think applies here is this sense of that AI is a cognitive prosthetic. It was Fran Pereira from Google that said it, and I thought it was brilliant because what we're seeing, and we're seeing in translation, we're going to see in a bunch of areas, is that if you invested 30 years in being an expert, using something like ChatGPT, you'll still have some gain, but maybe not quite as much because you think, hey, I already know how to do my job really well. I'm not going to change my ways. But if you're just starting out, if you're kind of not at the top of the experts pyramid, you benefit massively. So what you have is an upskill of beginners into experts very quickly. Right? And so this idea of having augmented cognition because of AI is going to be something that we're going to see more and more into every area that we do. And one more data point on this that I think is interesting is in every technological revolution in the past, there's never been a case where the increase in GDP did not lead to more jobs. And so what are those jobs is hard to say, but there is no reason to think this one will be different, right? I think we are about to create much more wealth, and that tends to lead to more jobs, even though they're different.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly, and I think a very good point is, let's say if you're a new doctor, you will want AI to help you learn faster, be better at your job.
Become an expert from day one.
Exactly. Being an expert for day one is such a huge benefit of everyone entering the job market that in 10, 15 years,
you know how people always say that there is, in every job profession, there's 10% of experts, the best doctors or coders, right? The best coders and the worst coders, 10x difference. The same applies to doctors and every other profession. Imagine if everyone is an expert. Everyone is on the top 10%, right? What would be the benefit of society if everyone had access to the best doctor ever, right?
Yes. Do you think regulation will help people trust in AI? Where do you stand for?
I think it's important to make the effort to try to regulate and to have deep thinking and discussion around it. I think Europe has been working on AI regulation for a number of years. It's been a bit upended with ChatGPT and generative AI because it's such a different type of AI. I think the challenge is that political systems are biological in nature and they're slow to regulate, and AI is evolving at a very fast pace. I mean, every 3 months, OpenAI releases something new that completely disrupts the ecosystem again. So it's hard to regulate something that is evolving that fast, and I think that will be a challenge.
Okay. So, Cristina, let's talk about investments. It was an invested year for you in AI startups?
Mm-hmm. Well, when you asked me about investments, and at Indico, we did 8 new investments this year. We are formalizing 3 more, so we've been quite active. Maybe 2 companies are more AI-focused, and that's Data for Deals and Nortec. But when a company comes to me and starts by pitching me the technology, I get skeptical, because I believe AI is a very, very powerful tool that's here to help us solve big problems. But the big problems that are worth solving with this technology were here before. Yes. So I love when founders come to me and pitch me hard problems to solve. I believe the technology is a tool. Of course, now with AI, and especially these large language models, we can solve the same problems in innovative ways, and that's amazing. I'm an engineer, big fan of tech, but please pitch me problems, not solutions, and not AI.
Maybe I can segue as an example. So we at Unbabel have been developing something that we're presenting tomorrow here at Center Stage at 2. And it came from a problem, right? So this idea of there's a lot of situations when you want to communicate without speaking. And if you look at situations of patients like ALS, which they're locked in, like Stephen Hawking's, the technology right now is just not adequate to enable communication. And so we used large language model coupled with a non-invasive neural interface to create a new device for people to communicate using thought, which patients are already using it now, right? And we're going to demo this live tomorrow at 2, so you're all invited to come and watch. It's a bit the future of this area of AI wearables, but it starts with a problem. Okay, how do we improve the lives of these people? And here's a situation where an LLM can really make a difference.
Vasco, that's huge. That's, I believe, the real purpose of the AI, is doing such things. Tomorrow you will hear Vasco, but it's huge.
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing is, this isn't a trend. So I started coding when I was 6. I'm a big fan of sci-fi. I've been dreaming about the stage that we're living forever, right? And
yes.
I've been thinking that the way I'm seeing cognition evolve is that we're kind of in the beginning of a hybrid model of human augmentation through AI. This is the first example. So ultimately, we want to enable everyone to be augmented by AI in different ways. But focusing on problems you can solve right now that have an impact in real life of real people, I think is key to making a difference and to drive towards something that is positive and good.
OK. So Unbabel is rising. You focus on the power of language, on translation. Many people doesn't know that only 25% of the world speaks English. And what about of the other 75%? How do you connect them?
Yeah, I think
thinking globally.
Our mission is very simple. We want to make it easy for every company to operate in multiple languages. And we see this because every company that scale, every startup here that will scale, will need to suddenly serve whatever they do to new customers in new languages. So how do I market? How do I sell? How do I have my website? How do I do customer support? And in a lot of this, we're now seeing that AI will have a bigger and bigger impact, and we'll be able to automate part of it. But what we're seeing when it comes to language is that the nuances are so important that you have a wide spectrum of use cases. For some, AI is the solution. Others, you need a hybrid model. Others, you need humans to be there with the nuance and transcreation and curation and creativity. And it's being able to create a platform that makes all this process seamless is what we're doing. And so even though we've been around for 10 years, we're just beginning. Language is such a big thing. You can think of language in a way as the OS of society. It's how we communicate, it's how we think. And we tend to be very focused on our bubble of language, of who we can interact with, and the markets that we're in. And so if we can truly connect the entire world and make language not an issue, there is no limit to the amazing things we can do.
Cristina, how do we connect with the undeveloped countries? I mean, Africa is the continent of the future. Is there a future without AI?
Again, I see AI as a tool, and I believe, especially right now, my favorite thing about ChatGPT was not the technology itself. Large language models have been around for a while. Companies like Unbabel and others have been using them. But the change management trend that it created. Because suddenly, to properly implement AI within a company 2 years ago, it would require a huge investment, lots of months trying to understand where do I have the data, train a model, know what good looks like. It would be a huge project in terms of time and money. And with ChatGPT, people saw the power of AI instantly. So now everyone is like, I see the potential, give me this thing in my business. So to me, the change management aspect was very interesting to see. And because of that, I think for the first time, countries, continents, companies realize this is the time to invest in AI. So I believe, of course, we'll have to drive that investment in order to, of course, we need to develop better models, but there's lots and lots of companies developing very powerful models that we can apply almost off the shelf. It's not as easy as that. So I would say that's number one, investments, and keep integrating these tools. The second thing is building trust. We understand the potential, but probably one of Vasco's biggest challenges is how do people trust AI to do what humans used to do for the past decades? And maybe we need to do it step by step. So first of all, the AI starts doing a manual job or being a co-pilot to the human, and the human is still a supervisor until people build trust in AI. And they are ready for the transition. So I believe that's where the biggest challenge is. I have no doubt in the next decade, we are not going to talk about AI in an explicit way, but every single piece of software companies will buy will have to have intelligence embedded. When we think about applications like Spotify or YouTube, that have a lot of AI embedded already, and recommendation algorithms and know our preferences, if we go back to the old way of interacting with consumer software that doesn't understand who I am, I'm not going to be happy. Like, try to give like YouTube to my kid without the recommendations is like, no, this is not what I want. So this is going to happen in enterprise software as well. Every piece of software that's going to be developed in the next decades will have to have intelligence embedded.
Yeah, and to your point, humans are weird when it comes to trust, right? We start by not trusting. We tend to be skeptics. Evolutionary makes sense. But as soon as you see 2 or 3 examples where we're like, yeah, this works, we're like, well, then we generalize it. Like, if it works for this, it works for everything, right? And then we rely on, later on, if there is a mistake, is when we go back and then start the process again. So I think that will happen faster than we think it will.
Yeah.
OK, that's a good call to action. Last question for both of you. What inspires you to go on, Vasco?
I think we are really in the beginning of what I think is the next stage of human evolution. And I think what we're seeing in systems of AI and the hybrid models that we're seeing, the combination of biological and technology, are going to radically change the face of the world. And I'm very excited to be part of that.
OK, Cristina?
Very deep question. So I think what inspires me is having people get together to solve deep problems and collaborate towards like a common goal. So super inspired to be here, for example. I think this is a great crowd, and I'm super excited with the next couple of days.
OK, I will leave also an inspiration quote, just a reminder for all of us, from Steve Harris. And it says, the real danger is not that computers will begin to think like men, but that men will begin to think like computers. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cristina and Vasco.